The man was a famous star, yet he was hiding a shameful secret. Although he had been married for years, he could never control his desires. He repeatedly cheated on his wife and became involved with multiple women. His wife had long been aware of what he was doing, but to protect his public image, she always chose to remain silent and endure it. Yet her tolerance and willingness to give in did not make him feel even the slightest remorse. Instead, it only made him even more reckless. One night, Shoei was secretly on a date with a girl from the same company, but just as the two of them walked out of the hotel, a paparazzo hiding in the bushes captured all their intimate moments on camera. After taking the photos, the paparazzo quickly fled the scene. Shoei immediately chased after him. He wanted to catch the paparazzo and stop the scandal from being exposed, but during the chase, Shoei grabbed the wrong person. What Shoei didn't know was that the man standing before him was the mysterious Laughing Salesman Moguro, whose origins were unknown. He would appear before people troubled by their circumstances and offer them a way out of their problems, but they had to follow the rules he set. If they broke those rules, Moguro would impose a cruel punishment. Although Moguro had no idea what had happened, he recognized Shoei as the celebrity who had recently become extremely popular. A playful smile immediately appeared on his face. Seeing Moguro's expression, Shoei assumed that he had also witnessed his affair. Fearing that Moguro might expose his secret, he invited Moguro into a nearby bar so they could talk things over. Inside the bar, the two of them had a long conversation. This was far from the first time Shoei had cheated. Before this, he had already been photographed by paparazzi on multiple occasions while dating different women. After becoming caught up in the scandals, most of those women couldn't withstand the overwhelming pressure from the public. Some suffered complete mental breakdowns, while others were even driven to desperate extremes. So Shoei begged Moguro to help him keep the truth hidden. After hearing his story, Moguro decided to help him. He introduced Shoei to a fixer who specialized in handling celebrity scandals. The fixer was an expert at negotiating with paparazzi on behalf of his clients. By offering a price both sides could accept, he could buy back all the secretly taken photos, silently making the scandal disappear. Shoei was somewhat skeptical, but at this point, he had no other choice, so he used the contact information Moguro gave him to find the fixer. After learning the full story, the fixer immediately set out to contact the paparazzo who had photographed Shoei. Shoei watched him leave, hoping the matter could be resolved as soon as possible, and the fixer worked quickly. That very night, Shoei received a phone call from Moguro. Moguro told him that everything had been taken care of. The paparazzo had accepted the settlement, deleted all the photos and negatives, and promised never to reveal the incident. Shoei finally breathed a sigh of relief, but after thanking Moguro, he immediately went out on another date with his new lover. Once again, a paparazzo photographed them, so he went back to Moguro, begging him to help him one more time. Moguro did not refuse, but this time, he had one condition for Shoei. He had to cherish his wife and never abandon her, no matter what happened. Faced with such a simple request, Shoei immediately agreed, but the moment he turned around, he started flirting with another beautiful woman. However, this woman firmly told him that if Shoei wanted to be with her, he had to get divorced. By this point, Shoei was completely infatuated with her. He had already forgotten Moguro's warning, so the very next day, he divorced his wife. To his credit, Shoei still had a shred of conscience. He chose to walk away with nothing, leaving the house and all their assets to his wife. After the divorce was finalized, he couldn't wait to go to the beautiful woman's home. He thought that once he had broken free from the restraints of marriage, he could finally be with her openly and begin a new life filled with both career success and love. But what he never expected was that the woman was actually the younger sister of the female star he had once driven to her death. She had approached him for one reason only: to avenge her sister's tragic death. She had already made a deal with the fixer who had helped Shoei suppress his scandals. As long as she could obtain solid evidence that Shoei had voluntarily initiated the divorce, the fixer would expose all the evidence of his years of cheating on his wife. In the end, all of Shoei's secrets and scandals were exposed. His story made the front pages of the magazines. Overnight, he went from a beloved celebrity adored by millions to a cheating scumbag despised by everyone. Shoei's story teaches us one thing: tolerance cannot make someone truly repent. His wife chose to endure everything in silence to protect his career, but her tolerance never awakened Shoei's conscience. Instead, it only made him even more reckless in betraying his marriage. Forgiveness without boundaries will only lead to more pain, rather than waiting for someone else to finally realize their mistakes. It is better to learn to value and protect yourself. The man's name was Izumo, and he was the chairman of a company. Although he was over 70, he had maintained a strict exercise routine for years, making him look no different from a man in his 50s. His friends around the same age were all envious of him, but no matter how young he looked on the outside, his body was still aging just as rapidly as any other man in his 70s. After playing golf for only half a day, Izumo was already completely exhausted. His frail condition did not escape Moguro's notice. Moguro offered to help him overcome the troubles of aging and give him a stronger, healthier body, but Izumo refused to admit that he was already old and frail. He insisted that his body was still in excellent shape and claimed that he didn't need Moguro's help at all. Moguro stopped trying to persuade him and simply told him that if he ever changed his mind, he could contact him at any time. Although Izumo refused to admit that he was aging, his large, protruding belly had already exposed the truth that he was no longer young. In reality, what Izumo feared most was having his aging appearance noticed by his friends. To maintain the illusion that he was still young, Izumo began an intense workout routine. Every morning, he would head to the gym and put himself through strenuous exercises. Yet even after working out until his entire body was sore every day, his physique showed no improvement whatsoever. Just then, Moguro came looking for Izumo. Seeing that Izumo's workouts were having little effect, he gave him a specially designed dumbbell. Moguro told Izumo that if he lifted this dumbbell 13 times every morning and every evening, he would be able to build a powerful physique. At first, Izumo thought the method was far too simple. He didn't believe that a dumbbell could possibly have such miraculous effects. But after using it for several days, his belly gradually shrank, the excess fat on his body slowly became firm, and even his strength increased dramatically. The visible changes left Izumo both shocked and delighted. He became completely convinced of the dumbbell's miraculous effects. From then on, he exercised with it every single day. In just half a month, he had developed a muscular physique, and his overall energy and vitality were even better than they had been 10 years earlier. Just as Izumo was showing off his physique to his friends, Moguro came to see him. He had specifically come to warn Izumo not to become overly dependent on the dumbbell. After all, everything he had gained already went against the laws of nature. If Izumo wanted to maintain his youthful and powerful condition for a long time, he absolutely could not start a romantic relationship with a young woman, because once Izumo fell in love, he would expend all of his energy, and his once powerful body would completely collapse. But Izumo was too intoxicated by the joy of being young again, and paid no attention to Moguro's warning. He was convinced that he would never sacrifice his youthful, powerful body just because he fell in love. With that thought in mind, Izumo continued spending his days having fun with his lover. Although the woman was deeply attracted to his muscular physique, she still doubted whether he was truly capable of satisfying her. To prove himself, Izumo immediately took her to a hotel. After spending some intimate time together, Izumo successfully proved his ability. He then proudly walked into the bathroom to take a shower. As Izumo stared at his reflection in the mirror, Moguro suddenly appeared. He accused Izumo of breaking their agreement by starting a relationship with a young woman. Faced with Moguro's reprimand, Izumo guiltily pushed him out of the bathroom and continued taking his shower. But Izumo failed to notice that strands of his hair were continuously falling out. Just then, the woman outside wanted to enter the bathroom and shower with Izumo, but when she opened the door, she saw a horrifying sight that she would never forget. Izumo's body had undergone a terrifying transformation. All of his hair had fallen out, and his teeth had fallen out as well. Not only had he lost all the vitality that had maintained his youthful appearance, he had also consumed what little life he had left. This was Moguro's punishment for Izumo breaking their agreement. Nagai was an ordinary company employee. Because he could not afford a home in the city, he could only live in the countryside far away from the city. His one-way commute took as long as 4 hours. That meant he spent 8 hours a day commuting back and forth. Such a long journey nearly drained him of all his mental and physical energy. But in order to keep his stable job and provide his family with better living conditions, he could only grit his teeth and endure the pressure. Until one day, the train suddenly came to an emergency stop. Moguro accidentally stepped on Nagai's foot. To apologize, Moguro wanted to offer Nagai some compensation, but Nagai hurriedly waved his hands and refused. He was afraid that any further delay would make him late for work. so he immediately declined Moguro's offer and hurried toward his company. After arriving at work just in time, he did not even have a chance to catch his breath before immediately throwing himself into a full day's work. He was so busy that he could not even find time to take a sip of water. After finally making it through the workday, Nagai rushed to the station once again and embarked on another 4-hour journey home. By the time he dragged his exhausted legs through the front door, it was already 11 o'clock at night. His wife and child were already fast asleep. That left him with only 5 hours of rest. He did not even have time to complain. After eating dinner, he had to take a shower immediately. Otherwise, he would not even be able to get those few hours of sleep. But he had only been asleep until 3:30 in the morning, when he was suddenly awakened by the doorbell. When he opened the door, the sight before him left him stunned. A luxurious car was parked outside his house. A chauffeur in a crisp uniform stood beside the car door. Before Nagai could even ask why he was there, the chauffeur invited him into the car. It turned out that Moguro wanted to make up for what had happened, so he had arranged a personal chauffeur for Nagai to drive him to and from work every day. The chauffeur had even thoughtfully prepared breakfast for Nagai, with no more need to make repeated transfers. Nagai leaned back in the spacious and comfortable seat and soon fell sound asleep. He thought he could finally escape the torment of his daily commute, but unexpectedly, they ran into a massive traffic jam on the way into the city. By the time Nagai arrived at the company, he was already very late. His boss harshly scolded Nagai and ordered him to stay late and work overtime, finishing all the work he had failed to complete that day. By the time Nagai finished working overtime, it was already 11 at night. There were no more trains running at that hour. Just as he was planning to find a cheap hotel to spend the night, Moguro appeared in front of him. He had not expected things to turn out this way either, and he repeatedly apologized to Nagai. Seeing his sincere attitude, Nagai did not blame him. He only hoped that Moguro would stop worrying about him, but Moguro insisted on compensating him, because he could not bear to see Nagai continue suffering through his exhausting commute. He then took Nagai to a high-end apartment. The apartment was luxuriously furnished, with everything he needed, as well as a live-in housekeeper, and it was only a 5-minute walk from the apartment to Nagai's company. Nagai could live there for free, but only on weekdays. Moguro required him to return home and spend the weekends with his family. If Nagai violated this condition, he would not only lose his right to live in the apartment, but would also face an unpredictable punishment. After hearing the conditions, Nagai immediately agreed. From then on, Nagai became the first person to arrive at the company every day. After escaping the exhaustion of his commute, he had plenty of energy to work, and his efficiency improved dramatically. Before long, he earned the approval of his boss. After work every day, his boss would take him out drinking and socializing, and Nagai began living a lavish and indulgent lifestyle. However, after one gathering, Nagai had drunk too much and forgot that it was Saturday. He also forgot that he was supposed to go home and spend time with his family. Out of habit, he returned to the apartment, but when he opened the door, the apartment was already completely empty. Moguro was also waiting there. He scolded Nagai for violating the agreement they had made, and violating the agreement meant that he had to accept the corresponding punishment. When Monday came, Nagai still failed to show up for work. While everyone was wondering what had happened, one of the female employees noticed something strange. Large numbers of ants kept crawling out and gathering around Nagai's wardrobe. When everyone opened the wardrobe, they saw a horrifying sight. Nagai had already been reduced to a mummified corpse, lying quietly inside the wardrobe. He would never have to endure those long commutes again.